I'm pleased to be here this morning with you, and I have to confess, I was really enjoying that back and forth debate about Uncle Greenspan and interest rates and renting money. So sorry that we had to cut off that lively debate, but it was very interesting, so I appreciate that. Um, Let me first say, for those of you who may not have been here last night, I really want to reiterate on behalf of Fannie Mae the gratitude and thanks to your organization, LARIBA, for honoring us. It was a wonderful thing to do, and we're very pleased to be such a good partner with you. With that, I want to get started this morning, and what I really want to do is talk about faith-based partnerships as a whole, and then our relationship that we have with LARIBA. So we'll get started. Now, I'll try to stick very close to the slides that you see up there that Paulette did so much hard work to put together, but most of the conversation will be just from the heart what we do at Fannie Mae. First of all, let me say this about faith-based partnerships. One of the things that we want to make very, very clear wherever we are in the country and whenever we're speaking, this is not an idea that was born at Fannie Mae. This is clearly something that faith-based organizations have been doing in their respective communities for a number of years. They have been supporting their folks both economically, socially, and spiritually, and we acknowledge that. This is also not something that was born by the current administration. Although our current president is very high on faith-based partnerships, it's not his idea. And so I wanted to make that very clear from the standpoint that I think it's important for us to share together that this is a learning opportunity, and we have lots of models at Fannie Mae. We have lots of partnerships at Fannie Mae. But we don't say that one is better than the other or one is applicable to everybody who's involved. And so we get excited about those opportunities to engage with you and others in this particular space. Fannie Mae, for those of you who aren't aware of our company, let me just say very clearly that with respect to housing Americans, in the mid-1930s, I'm sure Professor knows about the Great Depression that took place. Fannie Mae was actually born out of that Great Depression. And it was a simple reason why it was important to create an organization within the United States government such as Fannie Mae. And that reason was people who were actually paying on their mortgages every single month. Even during the Great Depression, they lost their homes while they were paying. And the reason why they lost their homes is because at the time they would pay so much on their homes over a period of X years, X months, and then the balloon mortgage was due at the end of a certain period. Well, during the Great Depression, when that balloon mortgage was due, there weren't any lenders for them to go out and get that financing. And so that was the creation of what we all know today as the 30-year fixed mortgage. It was actually born out of the Great Depression. And when that happened, the government looked for a company that would buy such a thing as a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage, and Fannie Mae was created to do that. Well, that was in 1938. Roll the clock forward, 1968, we became a private company. 1970, Congress created Freddie Mac so that there will be competition in what is known as the secondary mortgage. And so from 1970 on to today, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have been sort of the largest participants in the secondary mortgage. What I want to share with you is what we do at Fannie Mae, our mission at Fannie Mae, and what gets our employees up each and every day. And it is a very straightforward mission. At Fannie Mae, we believe our mission is to tear down barriers, to decrease costs, and to increase housing opportunities, as well as rental opportunities for all Americans. Because we believe in doing that, it creates safer communities, it creates stronger families, and it strengthens our nation as a whole. But we also believe that there's a duality with respect to increasing home ownership. And that is, not only does it create a shelter over your head, but it also is one of the greatest ways to create wealth in the country. And in creating wealth, it's also a very powerful way to transmit wealth from one generation to the other. In fact, there was a Peruvian economist who wrote a book recently that a lot of folks at Fannie Mae had been reading called The Mystery of Capital. And what he shares in there is that, at least in the United States with respect to housing, you have that duality of purpose with your home, that you can live in it for a number of years, you can raise your children in it for a number of years, but as the wealth or the equity increases in your home, you can tap into that equity not only to send your children to college, but also to start a business or perhaps to help them start a home as well. And at Fannie Mae, we feel very, very privileged to work with institutions such as Lariba so that we can create more and more opportunities to increase home ownership. I want to shift gears a little bit because I know we want to leave some time for question and answers, but I want to shift gears for a little bit and just move away from the slides temporarily to really talk about where we are now as an organization. At Fannie Mae a couple of years ago, in trying to move our company more and more to affordable housing company, that is to put home ownership in reach of more and more Americans, we started what we called in 1994 a $1 trillion commitment. And that commitment was basically to look at America, look at the housing opportunities in America, and to find ways to put 10 million more Americans in home over a 10-year period. So at the time we were going from, it was a 7-year period, I'm sorry, we were going from 1994 to the year 2000. We completed that a year earlier, and we immediately embarked on another commitment that we called the $2 trillion commitment. And that commitment was to put 18 million additional families in homes, and we were going to go from the year 2000 until the year 2004, and we completed that ahead of schedule. At that point in time, we were really struggling with sort of an encore because we realized that for most people, including a lot of folks at Fannie Mae, we really didn't know what $1 trillion looked like, and we certainly didn't know what $2 trillion looked like. But we did know that there were a number of folks in the country who could not afford their own homes, and in fact, there was a large housing gap in America. When you looked at white Americans as a whole, 74% of them owned their own homes and were able to tap into the equity and were able to transmit that wealth that I spoke about. But when you looked at minority communities, be it women-headed households, African Americans, Hispanics, Asians, all other folks in the United States, they were clearly below the 50% rate of home ownership. So there was a definite gap in those who could own their homes and those who did not own their homes. And Fannie Mae wanted to address that gap. And so we came to agreement amongst our colleagues throughout the country that we would then embark on this year what we call the American Dream Commitment 3.0. And it really just has three major components to it, and I think all of them would be of interest to this group here. The first component is to get more people in homes. The second component, and this goes to the heart of the conversation that they were talking earlier about foreclosure, the second component is to keep people in homes. We don't want to just put people in homes and then have to worry about foreclosing on them, but we want to find ways to keep them in homes. And then the third component is really about increasing the supply of affordable homes. Now at Fannie Mae, we're going to have a number of different initiatives to address those three components. And the one that I'd like to share with you this morning is really the faith-based component and how we believe that that can be very helpful and how we're very excited about looking for ways to increase the Lariba model around the country, working with this fine organization so that we can put more people in homes. When we think of working with the faith-based community, again, as I said, we're not looking for a one-size-fits-all. When Colette and Donna talked about bringing this model to Fannie Mae several years ago, They really had an uphill battle inside the organization. And I'm not embarrassed to tell you, sometimes in corporate America, when you're in headquarters, we move a little bit slower than the people out in the field. So we put a lot of pressure on our folks locally to really work with you and to make us believers that this could be done. And in fact, I congratulate you, Dr. Rahman and Mike, on making us believers back in Washington, D.C., that this could actually work. But now we want to take it to a different level and figure out how we can expand this opportunity for other organizations like yours, that we can, not just do it here in Pasadena, but perhaps maybe in other states around the United States, be it Utah, be it Washington, be it Texas, wherever it might be, that we might be able to leverage this model through your help to help other folks who would like to do the same thing. I think when we think about faith-based at Fannie Mae and why this partnership is working, it's because we really do have shared values. And those values are really around caring, compassion, and being connected to each other as a community. We certainly have our share of critics at Fannie Mae, and we certainly have folks who believe that perhaps there's too much housing in America. We don't agree with that. We believe that everybody who wants shelter, who wants decent housing, and who can afford decent housing ought to have it. And for those who can't afford it, we think as a community that we have a responsibility to put them in positions so that they can afford it. So we don't listen to the critics when they say America is overhoused. And certainly when we think about what you have done over the last couple of years, I think it's astounding to have a community of Muslims in America who for various reasons have been renting apartments, when clearly the money that they spend on renting apartments, they can own their own homes and shelter their families and have their families grow. So I think that's the sort of the undergirdings of the model that you have come up with. You're able to do something where you maintain adherence to your beliefs and to your laws. At the same time, you're able to enjoy the quality of your own home and raise your family in there. And I think that's very important. And it's something that you should really, really applaud yourselves on doing it. Let me see what is there a question? Oh. We want to talk about home ownership as it relates to local communities. And when I speak of communities, clearly Lariba could be viewed as a community of folks. What we have found over the years is that when people invest in homes, that the whole idea of investing into a community strengthens that local community. People become more active. They become more active in their schools. They become more active in the civic associations. They become more active in local politics, and as a result, the entire community is strengthened through home ownership. We also know that through home ownership, that folks who are buying homes and folks who are raising families have figured out a way to increase the wealth for their communities. We think that's important. With the American Dream Commitment, why we want to continue that partnership and continue that growth, quite honestly, is, as I mentioned, the three parameters. One of the goals that we have underneath the American Dream Commitment is to move the home ownership gap from 46%, the minority home ownership gap, from 46%, or 49%, excuse me, to 55% in the next 10 years. Now, you might say, well, that's a nice goal to have, and, we wish you well, Fannie Mae, and, we'll be a part of that, help you achieving that goal. But let me share with you something that I think is very important. With all the scholars in America today, with all the people who know as much about financing homes and about the lending process, there is no one, no entity, no body anywhere in America who actually believes that the home ownership rate for minorities in the year 2014 would reach 55%. In fact, The Harvard studies suggest that the closest we might get at 55% would be 54%, and that wouldn't happen to 2020. And so when we say that we want to move it to 55% by 2014, a full 6 years before sort of the best minds in the country believe it can happen, we think that's a significant stretch for our corporation. And outlining that stretch means that we have to look to work with every body that we possibly can throughout the United States to make that happen. And that brings us here to Lariba. If we can, in fact, take this model and jumpstart it in such a way that we can increase more opportunities for your community and like communities, that will clearly put us on the path to get to a home ownership rate just for minorities at 55%. Now, we don't say 55% to say that that's where we're going to stop. But we needed to put a goal out there that not only we could reach for, but that others could also reach for with us, because it is, in fact, a stretch for a lot of Americans. And just by show of hands in this audience here, how many of you are homeowners today? So when you just look around this room, could you just raise your hand a little bit higher? So if you look around this room here, there's opportunity in this audience here for home ownership. And when you look across America, what we found, at least with respect to minorities, that in any group setting of minority Americans, that only 1 out of 2 own their own homes. And so with that, there's a huge opportunity for us to work together to close that home ownership gap. Colette, I apologize for not going with the slides, but I just want to sort of just share with you, I think, what some of the key points are. In closing, let me just say that we were introduced to your group through the mayor of Pasadena, Mayor Bogart. I was introduced to your group through Donna Simpson and Colette. I am very excited about the work that has been done already. But I'm more excited about the opportunity that's in front of us. And what Colette and Donna have shared with you is just some literature on Fannie Mae. You know, one is really talking about what we are doing with faith-based communities across the United States. The other one is talking about tackling America's toughest housing problems. When we look at the work that we're doing in the faith-based, and we have today probably 100 faith-based partnerships. A little history about how that came about. When President Bush went to Atlanta, Georgia a couple of years ago, and he was real excited about increasing home ownership opportunities for minorities in the United States. Well, at that meeting, Fannie Mae was very involved and very active, and our chairman, Franklin Raines, came back from that meeting and said, he wanted 100 faith-based partnerships over the next several years, and he wanted Fannie Mae to be out in front making those happen. And when the chairman says something, we do pay attention. One, because he is the chairman, and two, because he is very committed to housing Americans. And so when he gave the sort of edict to create these 100 faith-based partnerships, he didn't give us any parameters of what they would look like, how we would do it, who we would work with, and how quickly we would get up to 100. But I'm pleased to say that we did put some parameters around it, and what we simply said is that we wanted to work with communities that we could measure what we were doing. And measurement for us was getting people into homes. Well, shortly as we were approaching 65 partnerships just a few months ago, our chairman came back and said, I want to change that number between now and 2014 to 250 faith-based partnerships. And so we're gearing up again to figure out how we would go from the 100 that we were asked to do to the 250. And so we'll be looking for ways to make sure that we get more partnerships in the pipeline for us. But we're also going to be looking for ways that we can strengthen and deepen the current partnerships that we have. And again, I can't underscore enough the partnership that you have already created with our Western Regional Office, and it is my hope that we would take this partnership on a national level, and working with Colette and Donna and their colleagues here, and Dr. Rahman and Michael, to figure out how we can help more and more people throughout the United States who are part of your community become part of the Fannie Mae community.